Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investing Book Club podcast with your hosts, Chris and Mike.
Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Book Club podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chris Davison, and we have today
Mike Lind. And today we'll be talking about the new book this week, which is Landlording on Autopilot by Mike Butler.
Mike, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, sure. So again, I do not come, I'm a remote investor mostly. So landlording is not on my radar day to day. However, I think there's so many things just takeaways from systems that Mike Butler implements. And it's just a great book of real estate in general, just making sure that your documents are good to go, your systems are good to go, accounting, insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So I like this book. It resonated with me. Coming from a military background, Mike Butler is a retired law enforcement professional, former undercover detective. And I think maybe some of our backgrounds were similar in our processes and thinking. So I really appreciated it. I would definitely recommend this book.
Yeah, I think a couple of things I like this book as well, Mike. I think as we look for books in real estate and investing and for mindset, this is great on operations. I think the four big things that we talk about and coach others on is finding deals, funding deals, acquiring. And then where I really think you make money is your operations and how you manage the deal. And obviously, if it's a buy and hold, how you get the best tenant, how you get the property ready, how you make it, what he calls it, a tank. I like to call it a bulletproof house with the materials you use. He really gets in that at a granular level, which I like. And I know for you, I know operations, Mike, being in the military, I get it. So what stood out to you most in the book, Mike, as you're kind of going through it and getting through it?
Just as you said, just the granular level at which Mike Butler describes kind of day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciate that. So many books focus on, big picture of saying, okay, hey, this, download this tenant software and then you're good. He will say, okay, download this tenant software, then download X, Y, and Z, and then you can sync up your PDFs to, you can incorporate different softwares and leverage technology. So just really getting into the very small details and step-by-step things of processes that I didn't even consider. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that as a newer investor. That's something that's missed, I think, in a lot of books. So that, and then just understanding just the life cycle, things that you will see day to day. If you have a portfolio, things that tenants will do, move-in cycle, move-out cycle, things that happen every single turnover. So I really appreciated that. Again, I'd say a lot of this to you, Chris, is second nature, being in management day to day and operations day to day. But for me, there's some good takeaways.
No, and I agree. I'll piggyback on that. I think, like he says, how he breaks things down, even gives you some basic apps and technology you can use. I don't want to jump into that, but obviously in this book, like, recording calls, time, date stamp on videos when you do walkthroughs before somebody moves in. So you have evidence of what it looked like. And then when they move out, a time, date stamp. And it might be great. And once again, I know he wants to give people 100% of their deposit back. So do we. But if they've destroyed the windows and busted every door in the house, obviously you got proof of what it was like before they moved in, then obviously what it's like after they moved in. He does a great job of just little things like that. That's why I think that's so important. This is a great book. This is one of the kind of bedrock books that we've used. And I think because I'm going to dive in a little bit, a point you mentioned as we discussed in the book. He discusses what most landlords operate reactively. And I think that's something that happens, you get a phone call, you just react, or something breaks and you just react. He's really good about looking and going through properties, having a sheet. We use the sheet very similar to what he has of what condition the property's in, getting through properties a couple times a year, looking at each one. And then you can decide what to do versus just reacting. He wants to respond. He wants to be able to look at things and be proactive. And I really think I like that. What was one thing you found interesting in the book, Mike, it really stood out to you as you're kind of getting through a lot of good gold nuggets in here, but what's one that stood out to you?
Yeah. So something, as I mentioned before, Mike Butler's background as a undercover detective. I don't know anything about that world other than the movies, but it's certainly very, very interesting. And I think you have to be maybe emotionally aware in that job more so than in any other job, just because of the nature of what's required of you. So many principles that we talked about when we went over how to win friends and influence people in terms of just having the personal touch and really trying to understand what a person's needs are and address them in a certain way and really try to, implement so many things that we overlook day to day as humans and really play into human nature and really try to get his tenants to have buy-in, meaning not that the apartment that he's renting out or a home that he's renting out is a rental. And so I would imagine again, Chris, like you're absolutely the subject matter expert, happy tenants or make a happy manager, I would assume. or at least fewer phone calls.
Yeah, yeah. But one of the things with kind of along that thought process is rewarding good behavior. Like employees, your tenants are your employees. And I like that because your good employees make you money and bad employees cost you money. And it's just training the employees. So if you have an issue, you have a company and the employee's not doing their job, you coach them on how to do better, just like a tenant. And I love that because I think that's how you get longevity and people staying. That's going to save you and make you more money versus you got a bad tenant, not paying rent, not keep the place clean. You want to coach them up and maybe they're just new. And we get a lot of first time tenants who've never rented before. They just need to be taught how to keep it clean, how to keep the noise down, where to park, just basic things. I really like how he breaks that down and kind of realize that you need to coach people. And a lot of times as owners or as investors, we come in thinking people should know what to do and think like us. And they're just not. They haven't been raised like us. They don't have the same experiences. And I think he does a really good job of, separating that, breaking that down, showing you how different ways is things that he's done that work. And I think they're practical by the same time that you can implement right away. So I think I notice a theme throughout the whole book is kind of the tenant psychology as we're kind of talking about right now. And there's just a psychology there. And what did you see, Mike, and kind of pick up as he talked about that kind of tenant psychology throughout the book, the thread there?
Yeah, something that I'm sure you probably read in grade school, middle school, high school, required reading, but Tom Sawyer. I don't know if anybody that may be listening remembers Tom Sawyer, or I might be dating myself. But in the story Tom Sawyer was trying to get out of painting a fence. So he was, hot summer day, he just wanted to hang out and he wanted to hang out in the shade and relax. So he just kept saying, oh, wow, painting this white fence is so awesome. Being out in the sun is the best thing ever. I'm so lucky that I get paid to do this. And so that kind of same kind of psychology of being like, oh, hey, listen, this is your home. Like, let's take care of it. Let's get you to take ownership of this place that you live in day to day and maybe solve problems before they even come up. And Chris, to your point, if your tenant comes to you with a problem that they already solved, humans love to be praised. So, that tenant should be rewarded,
Yeah.
should be praised. And then if there's some sort of way that tenant can be compensated, maybe you could be up for that conversation as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what you have to say about
Yeah.
that, Chris, as far
I
as
think,
leveraging.
yeah, you're just hitting on like all the silvers, Mike. I think first, let's back up a little bit. I love what you're saying. It reminds me of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that, it talked about, be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. I mean, you want to like, hey, good job, way to go. You want to reinforce good behaviors. I don't think it's always monetarily. I mean, it can be, but I think more importantly, it's verbally. And I think that's really important. And most people don't get verbal affirmation. Most people don't get accolades, even at work, even husbands and wives. The story I heard, wives begging for her husband to show affection. He goes, what's wrong with you? I said, I love you when we got married. Then we got married. We've been married for 20 years. I haven't changed my mind yet, but we don't know. You know what I mean? We want that verbal affirmation. I think a lot of times with tenants, even if the place is messy, if you can find one thing like the dishes are done, man, you guys did a good job. Your dishes are all washed. You keep the dishes clean. Kind of reinforce that. Love to see you helping, what else can I help you do? Keep the rest of the house like you guys do dishes. You do a great job with that. So I'm letting them know the rest of the house needs cleaned up. What can I do to help? So now it's our problem, not their problem. And now it's like, okay, let's try to work on this. That way, when we come through again, we keep bugs down, we can keep critters down, and you really have a place that you're proud to show, and we're proud to show. So just having that verbal reinforcement and kind of doing that. And you can do it. And the important thing is to do it in a way that trains them, reinforces them, not downgrades them or belittles them. I think that's super important. He does a good job with that. And good people are going to do the right thing. Bad people are going to do the wrong thing. And I just think of just praising, doing a good job. And most communication between landlords and tenants happens when something goes wrong. And Butler really encourages positivity and reinforcement. I mean, it's just Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what we need, and we want to be rewarded for good behavior. And just like everybody else, I think that's one of the most interesting parts of the book is like looking at folks for what they need and giving them what they need, but also telling them what you want. And what I like, even his whole logo, I adopted it for myself, Mike. I have it on these, they call them bandit signs, and we put them throughout the whole city. And I have a stack of them. Has my number. It's in yellow and black, just like he told me to do. And it says, we buy houses and we rent homes. And the whole verbiage in that is the fact that we're buying a house, and it's just a thing here, but the home is what we're renting out, and it's a place where people live and they do life. And I like that verbiage, kind of that context. I was just going to sponsor a golf outing this week. That's what I put on my sign is we buy houses and rent homes, just to let people know what we do. So we get two things. One, we could put in the front yard anywhere. And number two, lets people know we're buying stuff. So you kind of can get both parts of that. So I really like his psychology there a little bit. I think the guy's pretty sharp. He comes off as a good Kentucky boy, but I think he's pretty sharp. So what was one of the most interesting parts that kind of stuck out to you in that part, Mike, in the book?
Sure. So again, as somebody that is not in operations and management day to day, as if I want to consider myself an asset manager, still just really understanding the importance of building a team, which we talk about here all the time, but having good accounting, a good accountant and a good accounting systems. It's so important at the end of the year, come tax time. Again, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. found that to be extremely important. And then get in paperwork, systems, insurance, making sure your insurance is good, making sure your declarations pages are good, and things that are associated with that. So again, it's those things you can never avoid: insurance, taxes. It's
Yeah.
just part of any business, and so it's great to just systematize that and really have a good understanding of at least the basics of those things. And if not, at a minimum, it's absolutely essential to have people around you that do know about that, at least
Yeah.
if you're not an expert. So I thought
Yeah.
that would be really interesting. And again, I love to think about assets along the lines of asset protection. And so again, something that so many people, so many investors, or certain investors, I'll say, love to say, "Oh yes, this is my property. I'm the owner. I'm the manager. I'm in charge. I own this. I own that," which is great. But it might feed into your ego. But again, I think something that I really appreciate and use in my day to day is I never say that I'm the owner if I even interact with anybody. But I always say, "Oh yeah, I know the property manager, or property manager would not like that. I can't authorize or deny." So I like that. I like to kind of have an arm's length distance. Is be as polite and respectful as possible at all times. But again, it's always good to have that arm's length professional interaction when it comes to certain day to day operations, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I use that verbiage, Mike. I know you've seen me use it 100 times. Property management, when I knock on the door, we start having a conversation. I said, hey, I'll have to get with the owners because we always have somebody else. Even if I have a partner, it's 1%, my wife or my son or other investors are involved in the project. But we are property management, and we definitely lead with property management. And just let you know that you're a professional and that you are the face of it. Because I think landlording throughout the decades, even centuries, has got a bad rap. So, oh, the landlord, you just kind of saying that is like it's a us against them. We're just the tenant, we're just a renter, and they're the landlord. And I know that's kind of give a bad, connotation. So I think the property manager is more professional, more a corporate thing. And I always describe it like you go into Walmart, you don't start negotiating the price. Like the price is the price on a product at Walmart. Same thing if you're a property manager and have something, this is how we do it. This is the rent, this is the late fee, this is how we do a late fee. And I take all those kind of things, even from his system, I use those, how we'd even go through that. I think one system's curious, talking about systems, but it's also about people. And it really, you have to have that people component, but you also have the system component. And I was a little scared about this doing showings. We weren't even there. I'm like, man, I don't want to let somebody in my house. You know what I mean? But he has a great system, a way to do that. We implement that system and we kind of manage that system where it's not face to face, but we're doing a guided tour with them on the phone. So we're not physically there because a lot of times, I wouldn't say 50% of the time, probably 40% of the time, people aren't showing up or they cancel, even when we follow up and confirm things. So we're not wasting our time getting in a car, driving, coming back, wasting all that time. And we will take that concept and then we'll not spend a significant amount of time on the front end. We'll look at their background checks, we'll vet them properly. But one of the things we are big about is he does, I need to do a little bit different rereading this book, is we do a new tenant orientation. It's about 11 minutes and we kind of use his system and it really lets them know that, hey, here's our expectation as, a landlord, as a property manager. Here's our expectation. Here's all the rules. You can't smoke in the house, no fires near the house. We don't allow pets unless there's some kind of emotional support animal. And then here's our expectation. And then here's what you should expect from us. Call us and we'll fix things within 24 hours if it's not an emergency. If something's leaking or there's a problem, call us right away. We'll fix things. If you don't know this is how you pay rent. If you're not able to pay rent on time, call us, let us know right away. So what to expect from us and what we expect from them. And I do a new tenant orientation. I need to get that in a video format. And I just think it just lays out clearly the rules and what the expectation is. Just like you would have if you're in the military. This is what I expect you to do. Make your bed, show up, get up at this time, go eat at this time. Same thing if you're in college in a dorm room. You can't have parties, wild times. These are expectations. So just like anything else, you're going to have expectations. If you're a good parent and you have your kids in the house, pick up after yourself, take the trash out, do dishes. We're just laying those same expectations. And just like you go to a new job, you have an orientation. These are the expectations of the company. I like that a lot. So for me, I think that's good. And it really gives me something to let the tenants know that we are professional and we do have expectations and we expect you to meet them. And I refer back to that. And I'll say, hey, remember a new tenant orientation? We said no fires. You got a fire pit right up against the house. That's no bueno. Or, hey, I see your dog sitting. That's always the thing I get, or cat sitting. Hey, we talked about pets. You don't have a pet fee. We're not approved for that. I can't have a pit bull at the house because it's barking all the time and want to attack the neighbors. We talked about that in orientation. Remember, you signed off on that. So, all right. That was kind of my rant there. Sorry, Mike, but I do think it's more important to set expectations. What do you think about that, Mike? Kind of how's he got into that stuff?
Absolutely. And not only is Mike Butler talks about it being important to train your tenants on your expectations, but also to document all those
Yeah.
expectations systematically.
Yeah.
Again, I think he comes at a lot of things with the law enforcement hat on, and the worst comes to worst. And, the tenant and the dispute between a tenant and your manager has to be decided in court by a judge. Well, if your documentation is not in line with that, with all of those expectations, clearly outlining all of what those things are that are required with them, and have them sign their name to it and have, pictures taken, etc., worst comes to worst, again, worst case scenario, tenants reading in the front end can completely avoid probably 95% of those situations before they even arise. But just having all of your ducks in a row as far as insurance, documentation, inspections, pictures. So if, again, worst case scenario does happen and things need to be decided in court, then things will overwhelmingly be on your side as the investor.
Yeah, I think part of that too, Mike, even before that, I step back, if I may, is building a relationship with them early. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so I like what he says. You want to be familiar, but not friendly. Like, hey, if I see you at the grocery store, Mike, I'm going to say hi to you. How are you doing? How are things going? Because I know that A, you're paying rent, you're doing a great job. And then B, I'm fixing things and maintaining the place, and it's a good place to rent. I'm not like, oh, I didn't fix Mike's roof, or I'm not meeting his needs, or I'm going to duck out, or he's not looking at me like, hey, I didn't pay him rent this month. I'm not going to look at. We have a relationship. So we're going to coach. If he's not doing the right thing, we're going to help him. And at the same time, if something needs fixed, I'm going to address it right away, because I don't want calls on the weekend. I don't want calls at midnight. I want to address it during business hours, fast as possible. I want to get it done and cut that off at the pass. So I think this book really says on the front end, build a relationship. You know, we talk about this all the time for like investors, you know, using the frog analogy, family, recreation, occupation, and goals. I want to know those things about them as well. Their family, or they have family nearby, close by. Did you grow up around here? It's an easy thing to ask. Recreation, what kind of things you like doing? You know, if they like to do clay pigeon shooting, I think that's fascinating. I enjoy that as well. Is occupation, what do you do for a living? You should know what they do for a living because it's on their application. And then goals, you know, what's your goals? This is good to ask for goals, because what are you thinking? Because now if they're looking to buy a house in 6 months, you know, they're going to leave your place in 6 months. You know, if you're looking to their first place, they're looking to establish themselves and build credit, they're probably going to be there a little bit longer, 2 to 5 years. So it's just good to kind of ask those things. They're going to tell you by asking good questions and building that relationship. That's going to cut a lot of things off. And you're just going to have more of a friendly thing, a friendly reminder. And this is my whole business model. Kroger's is a grocery store we have around here, but think about your local grocery store. You want to be able to see your tenant in the store, make eye contact and say hi. You don't want to have to hold your head down or avoid them. You don't want it to be a situation where you're not happy with them, they're not happy with you, and you're going to have issues with tenant challenges, and you're going to have to get a tenant out. That just is what it is. But when you have a tenant and they're in place, you want to be able to make eye contact and say hi. And I think you already got into how the book talks about property manager versus owner buffer, and we talked about that. I found that interesting as well. I think that's real important, you know, that you have a management company and you're not just the owner or landlord. Instead of a person, it becomes personal disagreement between a landlord and tenant. It becomes something that is it's kind of the system. You put that system in place. And then, like you said, Mike, you really hit on the documentation, and Butler kind of obsesses with that. And we're real big about giving a 3-day notice to correct. You know, depending on your municipality, we're in Ohio, you can give them a 3-day notice to correct if they have a vehicle with no license plate outside, if they have, you know, trash out front, if they're doing a fire close to the house, if their place is messy inside. 3 days fixes most of these things. They can clean them up or get rid of them. So we're real big about that. And then it's just in their file. And then if they have several 3 days with excessive noises or other things like that, you have a file, you have documentation, now you can go. And I think he does a great job. If you want to talk about some of his checklist, a little bit of documentation stuff, Mike, I know that you're kind of like on the systems part of it. I'll let you jump in if you want.
Yeah, again, just making sure everything is in line, ready to go. One of those things specifically that I found, I don't feel guilty of not always taking care of is verifying that there's a contractor agreement if you have any contractor doing work on your property. Number one, and then number two, making sure that you have a declarations page of their insurance policy, and then not only just accepting that their insurance policy is good, but doing the third step and calling and verifying that insurance is in fact good to go and up to date. So. Yeah, that's just one little thing that I have to admit that I have not always done. That's absolutely hurt me. It's come up to bite me, in years past. But again, certain systems like that, great to have in place. That these are non-negotiables. You don't even think about them. It might even be part of your screening process if a contractor can't provide some of that documentation. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, getting in the management operation, you hit on a great thing. I just want to touch on. I don't want to spend a lot. We spent a lot of time on this, but real important. Those listening, the big things with contractors, I'd say the big 3 are: get a contract, especially if it's not just a repair, $100 repair. Get a contract on it, and then we can sure it's in writing, so you can go back if there is an issue. It's all spelled out, and then actually spell the work out. So it's a contract. It's in writing. Get referrals. And be surprised. I call the referrals. You'll be surprised sometimes the referrals they'll give you, and they'll not always be the best referrals. So it's good to call them. And obviously make sure you kind of get in. I say the third thing, but there's a couple legs of that third thing. Part one is making sure that they have insurance, a declaration page, which is super easy to get, that they have. So you have the contract, you got referrals, you got insurance, and then a workers' comp. Either they have workers' comp, or it's like $50 or $100 in our state to say a certificate. I don't want workers' comp. That way you're not liable if something happens to the property. And then obviously a W-9 for federal, so you can give them a 1099 at the end of the year. It's just a one-page thing. If they don't have it, you can give it to them, fill it out on the spot. So I get that W-9 before I give them a check. So if I don't do that, I paid them for the job. They're not motivated now to give me what I needed, the W-9. So in turn, as an owner or as a property manager, I had to give them proof that I paid them or wrote them a check for a property. And that would be a 1099 form for the IRS. So those are some of the things we do. Just real quick, we'll summarize that again. Get the contract, get everything spelled out in writing, what they're doing, how much it is, and there's no issues at all. It saves you time and them time. And if there's anything that needs to add on, again, you can do a change order. And then 2, getting referrals. I asked for at least 3 referrals. That should be super easy. If they've been doing business for a while, they should have 3 people they can just pop off their phone. You can call. And then third thing is getting W-9, getting insurance and net workers comp. So, all right. I don't want to be a dead horse, but I think that was important to hit on, like when you brought the contractor part. So if anything, most landlords, I think, don't document enough. I think, Mike, that's kind of be a thing I think you would agree with. So Butler's philosophy seems to be take the picture before you need it. Like take a picture of a house. There's something out front, it's bad. People are parking in the yard. I think all that stuff move-ins. And especially if you want to kind of touch a little bit on his move-in, move-out stuff. And like we've kind of adopted a lot of that and then some other systems. But is there anything you want to kind of go into that from that standpoint?
Sure. I greatly appreciate anybody that takes efficiency to the next level. So it's great. Mike Butler outlines certain processes, for example, move in and move out procedures. So every time somebody moves out, things need to be documented. The place needs to be inspected. Pictures need to be taken. Again, we're thinking about economy of motion. Well, somebody's moving out and you're taking pictures to document the condition of that place. Those pictures simultaneously can be posted as advertisements, advertising that new vacancy. And again, you're saving time and you're saving economy of motion. And again, that's just one example he uses, but there's a million ways you can really kind of take 2 steps back and maybe not work in the business, but work on the business and look at your processes. And maybe that ends up being that, that's one trip per turnover that you don't have to make to your visit that property. And again, that compounds on itself year after year as your portfolio eventually keeps scaling. Those systems have to be in place because, if you have over 100 properties, I think it would be nearly impossible, for you, for example, Chris, to try to visit every single one of your properties in one day. I mean, maybe if you spread it out over 24 hours and that was the only thing that you did in that entire 24 hours, maybe you could do it. But again, that's just not possible, nor is it really efficient. So just looking at places to really kind of not cut corners, but to kind of look for the straighter line and save yourself time, save yourself money, and save yourself headache. Again, what would you have to ask yourself? Would you rather be making $50,000 a month and have no free time whatsoever, or would you rather have make $15,000 a month and play as much golf as you want, or maybe like fishing or shooting clay pigeons? So again, just figuring out what you want, figuring out what you're good at, and then making systems accordingly to get yourself there, get yourself to that next level.
Yeah, you very a lot of good points here, Mike. I think one of the things, real quick, I want to touch on a couple of small things they talked about in the book, and I think it's super important. One is, like you said, economy of motion. Like videos are super important today. He didn't really hit on that, like Zillow, Posters.com, wherever you advertise, people want it. The more time you get somebody to spend on your site or your listing, your ad, the more likely they are to buy or rent from you, if that makes sense. So pictures are awesome, but videos. So if you're going to document, timestamp the video, the condition before you moved in, use that in your marketing, your ads is what we do. And I'm always trying to get at least 2 under 60-second videos because Zillow and all that. And you could put them anywhere. You can throw them on YouTube for more exposure. You can use them in your property. If you have a website, you can use them in your ads for your listing, whether it's Zillow, Powers.com, or however you market and ad, Facebook. You could use all those things. I think that's super important how you can do that economy of motion, really important. And then those things are always there. So you can repost them now. So I know somebody's moving out in 30 days, I can repost that listing. So by the time they move out, we can turn that unit sometimes same day and get somebody else in, sometimes in a week, 2 weeks, depending on what work needs to be done. So really, he does a good job about that economy of motion systems. I think a couple things we'll touch on is different municipalities in different areas have a Section 8 situation. In Ohio, where we are, in our area, we can choose to rent Section 8 or our properties just aren't Section 8 approved. So he gets into that a lot. I know he talks about that. Some areas you have to rent Section 8 and you don't have a choice. First person that shows up and they're qualified, you get to rent to them and document all that. But most people are going to disqualify themselves in the application process. And you need a full application with everything. I'll just give you a couple examples. You might have an application, all these things, but they don't give you pay stubs. Well, that's not a full application because you can't prove they make that money. Or they don't give landlord references. So if I can't follow up on your landlord references, that's not an approved application for us. And we do every application the same way. So that way I'm not discriminating and we use the same system and we don't discriminate or do any kind of, things that aren't regulatory. And we're fair housing, but we treat everybody the same. Our application screening process is all the same and it's meet the fair housing criteria. So he does that. And a lot of people disqualify themselves not because they're bad application, because they don't give you everything you need. Now, if you got a tenant and you're like, man, I think this is going to be a good person, all the boxes are checked, they're just not giving me their pay stubs, maybe because they're older and they don't understand technology, for example, maybe you can help them do that, and you can help them get to the finish line and get their application approved. But if it's somebody who's real at the front of the gate and they turn all their stuff in, but maybe you see some things that not, maybe you just got to find what doesn't work for you. Either credit score doesn't work, or maybe, their landlord references didn't make sense to you. Those are people who are going to disqualify themselves anyway. So you got to look, you're pre-qualifying. One of our mentors, Jerry, says, you're pre-qualifying them on the first phone call, and you have that conversation. We do that now, and most people just don't qualify on the first phone call. But if they do qualify for the first phone call, let's get to the next step. So what's one of the biggest takeaways you got out of this, Mike? I just kind of word vomited all over you, but what's one of the biggest takeaways in this book? I know there's a lot of meat in here. What do you think?
Documentation and systems. Again, I do not implement all these things in my business. I'm newer, and 100% I'm definitely going to implement a few checklists when it comes to hiring contractors, and when it comes to checking people's insurance and certain things like that, when it comes to almost having a package ready to go before we even speak to a lender. So for example, heck, I get off the phone with a lender and they ask me for A, B, and C. Well, cool. I already have a little folder on my computer or on my cell phone that has those documents that 99% of lenders ask for, that is already uploaded and ready to just send immediately, almost instantaneously, rather than taking that pause and taking that 30, 20 minutes or however long it takes you to group all that together. Just having everything ready to go, having the most occurrences, having those box checks before they even those things become an issue. So those are the takeaways: just being organized, having systems, and having that documentation very quickly and easily ready to go, and then just using technology to do all of that.
Yeah. I think you bring up a great point, Mike, on contractors too, just real quick. And it could be anything. And just get a file. If it's a Google Drive file folder, once you have their W-9, their insurance, their BWC paperwork, all these things, and their quote, put that in a file. Now you have that stuff ready to go for your accountant or whatever. And if you have it digitized in that Google file, you can also do a print folder. I like to have both personally. Now it's there. I don't have to ask the guy again for his 1099 or for his W-9, sorry. And I don't have to ask. I already have a hard copy, so I need to pull that up. And then I already have all this stuff in a file. So next time, and it's good for him, say, hey, I have your stuff. If you ever have a client needs all this stuff, I have it for you. I can email it to you. Now you've added value to him because he don't have to. He's swinging a hammer or fixing things for you. But now you've done this for him, and you can give him something right away. Hey, Chris, from that file I gave you, I had a customer asking the same stuff. Can you help me out? Yeah, no problem. I'll shoot it over to you. I call them 5-minute favors. I take you 5 minutes to do it, and he's appreciated it, and it's added value to what he's doing. And now you get him ready for paperwork that he's going to need for other jobs. So I just think it's a win-win for everybody. So let's get into it. Everybody who should read this book. I thought about this. I think everybody should read this book, Mike. Anybody's property manager, owner, thinking about real estate, nuts and bolts. Who do you think should read this book, Mike?
Again, everybody. Just because even myself, speak for myself, the only person I can speak for. I do not manage properties day to day. I'm not involved in daily operations, but I absolutely see a lot of value in it. And I think just because you're not involved in that part of the business day to day doesn't mean that you don't need to have a solid understanding of it. So this is management focused, but it goes over just all the fundamentals of real estate and systems, just getting everything in line and everything ready to go. Talks about depreciation, taxes, and all the benefits we talk about all the time.
Yeah. How many out of 10 houses, Mike, 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how many houses would you give this bad boy?
I will give Autopilot, Landlording on Autopilot, 9.5 out of 10 houses.
Man, that's about as generous as you've ever been. So let's give it the same. I want to give it the same because I've got a ton of value out of this, and I've really implemented a lot of stuff in this book. So I had to give that 9.5 as well. And once again, Mike Butler's just a genuine good dude. I think as you read that, he has stories and he's just real relatable. And the guy's still training, helping, coaching people, and his family works in the business. And I think that's really important that somebody who's a good person has their family in it and is creating generational wealth. But he's also creating systems. That's what I want to kind of wrap up is it makes it easier. When you have a system, whether it's one property or if it's 101 properties, it's easy to have systems and implement time and time again. Even if they're not great, but you have a system. And one of the things kind of wrap up real quick, when he has somebody who pays late, he has a late fee and then a per day late fee. And I like this. And we started implementing this. So the per day late fee, the first time they're late, I'll get rid of the per day late fee, but I won't get rid of the one-time late fee. Say it's $60. But the $2 a day late fee I'll get rid of. And the next time they're late is 10 days. Now they got to pay the late fee and the per day late fee. And that really coaches or train them. And people who are going to pay on time, and those who don't. And we have people that pay all the time late and they pay that late fee. And to me, it baffles me. Why would you want to pay more versus just getting on a schedule when you get paid and paying it off? So he's got a lot of good systems like that. I just want to kind of add that tidbit. Power Pack book, read it. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you want to add to it, if you didn't like it, you did like it, what you got out of it. And we appreciate you guys for joining us. Once again, I'm Chris and we got Mike here today. Always appreciate the books. And if you got something you want to read about, talk about, hit that in the comments and we'll share it with you later. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you all.
Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investing Book Club podcast with your hosts, Chris and Mike.